This video will walk you through the 4 key steps in maximizing your chances of scoring a 7 in IB Business Management. This includes an approach that all BM students should use and the single most effective strategy that you can use to improve your performance without changing the way you study. So this is an approach that took me some time to figure out myself when I was a student, but is one that I would highly recommend any BM student follow. The first step is to ensure that you're reviewing strategically. Now, most of you probably have your own study methods that you use to review for business, but study strategically will make sure your studying is more efficient. Some examples of this include focusing on topics that are tested to the AO3 level, as these, unlike other topics, can be tested as a 10 marker. This means that you need to know them in more depth compared to other topics. Another strategy might be to remember 2 common advantages and disadvantages that are applicable to many case studies, rather than every single advantage or disadvantage listed in your notes or study guide. The second step is to ensure you understand the requirements to answer different types of questions. Later on in this video, I'll go over some of the key points you should remember in answering your 2, 4, and 10 marker questions. Understanding expectations will help you maximize your marks on a test or exam and ensure that you don't write any more than you need to, saving yourself time. The third step is to simulate conditions that you would face in a test or exam. Now, this really focuses on your ability to put yourself in conditions as close to what you will face in school or on the final exam. This can better help prepare you for your assessment when it actually happens. Finally, identifying areas of improvement or weakness for future assessments. Starting this process early on in the DP program will help you ensure that you have sufficient time to improve in the course. Now, in business management, most of your questions will boil down into 3 types. The first are 2 markers. If you aim to score a level 7, you should be consistently getting 2 out of 2 on these questions. The key things to note here are, first, understand what the different command terms mean and how that impacts the way you respond to the question. For example, command terms such as state and identify only need a few words to score full marks, while a command term like describe requires a full paragraph. You end up saving yourself a lot of time here, which you can use on other longer responses as a result. Now, some questions require application and some do not. The rule of thumb here is that any question that has the case name in it requires application. And if the question doesn't have the case name in it, it doesn't require application. So for example, if the question read, describe one advantage of being a publicly held company, you don't need application. You could rely on your business theory and explanation to score 2 out of 2. If a similar question read, describe one advantage to company X of being a publicly held company, there is explicit reference to company X in the question, therefore you need application to score 2 out of 2. Don't waste time trying to apply to the case if the question doesn't require it. You will not earn any marks for this. Finally, on definitions, make sure all your definitions have 2 sentences. This way, if the first sentence is not exactly what your teacher or examiner is looking for, you can still show understanding in the second sentence, earning you a 2 out of 2. Remember that you don't need to memorize a textbook definition. Any definition can score a 2 out of 2 as long as it conveys good understanding of the term. The next common type are 4 and 6 markers. 4 markers are very common, with 6 markers occasionally showing up on the paper 1. If you are aiming for a level 7, you should mostly be getting 4 out of 4 on these questions, with the occasional 3 out of 4. The key things to note here are, first, make sure there's strong application to the case. Every 4 marker requires application. A good way to measure if you have sufficient application is to ask yourself whether a reader who has not seen the case before will learn something unique about the business by reading your response. If your answer here is yes, you've probably done a good job with application. After your application and explanation, your last sentence should consider the impact on the business. In other words, as a result of your point and explanation, such as the advantage or disadvantage, what are the implications for the business, or what holds true for the business as a result? For example, increased revenue and profits, increased market share, reduced costs, targeting a new customer segment. It could really be anything, but make sure that you consider it in a way that's relevant to your point. The last thing is a strategic point on answering 4 markers. One thing I always get asked when I tutor students is, how do I prioritize questions given that I have issues finishing the test? For this, remember that it is possible to score 4 out of 4 on all of your 4 markers, but it's highly unlikely that you score a 10 out of 10 on the 10 marker. For this reason, the 10 marker should be the last question that you do, unless you are truly stuck on a 2 or 4 marker. Finally, the most difficult question in this course, the 10 marker. Now, if you're aiming for a level 7 and you're scoring near perfect on your 2 and 4 markers, you actually only need a 5 to 6 out of 10 in order to score on level 7. The key things to note for the 10 marker: first, make sure your arguments are balanced. What this means is you consider an equal number of arguments for and against. A good rule of thumb here is to have 4 body paragraphs, 2 for the change and 2 against the change. Unbalanced arguments, such as having 2 and 1 or 1 and 2, will always result in points being deducted. Now, your 10 marker body paragraph should operate very similarly to the 4 marker paragraph. You should use the same PEE plus impact or point evidence explain plus impact structure as you do in the 4 marker, while adding more detail where possible. Doing this consistently will get you at least a 6 out of 10 on the 10 marker essay. Now, if you want to move yourself into the 7 to 8 mark band, you should show consistent evaluation in your essay. What this means is that you consider the short run and long run implications of your points and their impacts throughout your essay, not just in the conclusion. Now, a general tip to answering questions in business management, and this applies to all types of questions, is to be explicit in everything. Teachers and examiners will only give you marks for what you have written on the paper, and will generally not reward you if analysis is implied but not explicitly stated. Therefore, make everything as clear and obvious to the person reading your paper as possible. This can be done by using key phrases in your response, which make it very, very obvious to the reader that you're meeting requirements. For example, in every 4 marker, you can end with, "The impact on the business is," and then explain the impact. Or in your 10 marker, you can explicitly use the words short-term and long-term to show that you're considering both short-term and long-term impacts. This makes it very clear to the teacher or examiner that you meet both structural and content requirements. Now, as we move to simulating test or exam conditions, this is actually a step that most of you probably do to some extent, but perhaps surprisingly, the level of which you do it till can make a significant difference in your performance. So most of you are likely already testing yourself on content, trying exam-style questions, and attempting past papers. This is a good start, but the key limitations of this approach are that 1, unless you're writing the final exam, the questions are often not targeted at the content that you'll be tested on. And 2, the way in which you write them may not fully simulate exam conditions. So the first step you can take to address this is to write a full-length mock exam. And this goes for a unit test at school or the final exam. This means that you write a full paper that follows the same length and number of marks as your test at school or your final exam. This can help you better understand how your paper is structured and learn what types of questions you will encounter on the paper. This brings me to the most effective step I've seen students take, and it actually has nothing to do with content knowledge, which is simulating assessment conditions. What this involves practically is handwriting a full-length paper, timing yourself, and clearing any distractions like your phone. One of the biggest concerns for BM students is failing to finish an assessment on time. Bringing yourself as close to the conditions in which you write an assessment will not only get you used to the style of the assessment, but will also help you train yourself to write a lot of words quickly, something which is key to finishing the paper, particularly the 10 marker. Now, all of us are far more used to typing than we are handwriting, but since your test or final exam will be handwritten, this part of your review should also be handwritten. For best results, you should probably do this once you're about 90% ready for your test or exam, so that you have enough time to quickly go back and review any areas that you may have struggled with. Finally, identifying areas of improvement, both with your knowledge and how you study, is something you can do throughout your 2 years to maximize your chances of success. If you are struggling with the content or reviewing the content, there are a couple of strategies you could take. Try to find ways to streamline or make your study more efficient. For example, are you spending too long memorizing content and less time applying it? Everyone studies differently, so try different methods of quizzing yourself. Study with your friends, test yourself through multiple choice questions, and try other methods to figure out what really works best for you. Of course, try to begin study as early as possible. This will also help you ensure that you have enough time to practice applying the concepts, which in the business management course is equally as important to knowing the concepts. To best understand assessment requirements, know your command terms and the associated response structures with each. we're looking at full-length exemplar responses. So this goes beyond the past paper mark schemes, but our full-length responses to actual questions are a great way to do this. If you don't want to type or write things out at this stage, you can practice your responses out loud to ensure you hit all the key structural points. To best prepare yourself for a test or exam, nothing beats regular practice, and this includes both case studies and full-length mock exams. Try to handwrite everything at this stage, since your test or exam will be handwritten. To identify areas of improvement, take the time to fully grade your case study or the mock exam that you write. This is the most effective way in identifying where you might want to improve. This is because not only will it help you better understand what types of questions you're losing marks on, such as 2 markers, 4 markers, or 10 markers, but it will also help you learn why you are losing marks, such as not having enough application or not considering the impact on the business. Perhaps most importantly, it is never too late to get help. Whether you are in your second month of the IB or your final exam is coming up in a few weeks, getting help, whether from your peers, a teacher, or a tutor, is something you should always do if you feel like it would be beneficial to you. If you would like to achieve a level 7 on your next test or exam, please check out the resources at diplomaly.org. The resources on the website, including case studies, full-length mock exams, and full-length exemplar responses, will help address many of the topics that I've discussed in this video. If this video was useful to you, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. If you have any questions or would like to see us cover any types of BM content, please let us know in the comment section. Thank you for watching.